everyone, it's Victoria for SlurpVision. Wedding season is upon us and there is so much to plan. Aside from the dress, the venue, the guest list and the food, there's of course the wine. We've caught up with one of the UK's leading wedding planners to find out some top tips on planning a wedding and how important is wine for the big day. And if anyone knows how to choose wedding wines, it must be the wine experts. I've caught up with a few of the top wine experts in London to see what they chose to drink on their wedding. And we'll finish up with a few suggestions of our own to make sure you know where to start with your planning.
Hello, my name's Siobhan Craven-Robins and I'm a wedding coordinator based here in London. I plan weddings for a variety of couples, from people based abroad to celebrities to busy couples that don't really have the time to do it themselves, and obviously all of them require fine champagne and good wines.
What are your top tips for planning a wedding?
I'd say the starting point, although it can sound a little mercenary, is definitely to plan a budget. It gives the couple an idea of what they can or can't afford. And so the best way to do this is do research through magazines, get an idea of what the elements cost, such as flowers, cake, dresses, a DJ, photographer. Get an idea of each of those, and then you'll get an idea of what your total budget will be for the wedding. The couple should allocate the time to do it. Don't try and fit it in amongst a busy lifestyle. So set aside an evening a week or a day at a weekend and make that your time to sit down and discuss your wedding. It makes it pleasurable, you're not rushed, and you know you've allocated that time then to it as well. If they're not using a wedding planner, ask opinions, definitely, from friends or whoever who've got married before them. Ask who they used, or if there was elements of their wedding they particularly liked, find out who they used, and that way you know you're going to get reliable suppliers.
Going back to the budget, how much do people usually allocate towards the wine?
Difficult to generalise on that because obviously it depends on budgets, and obviously wine and champagne are more important to some people than others, but I'd say typically about 10%. But my advice to couples is always go for the best you can afford. So if you can't afford champagne, go for a really good Prosecco. That's so much better than serving something that perhaps isn't quite to your palate.
Right.
And also to think of doing things like, for the reception drinks, perhaps mixing it with something, so creating a Bellini, a peach Bellini,
nice
or with framboise.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a way that obviously it can go further, and also it's saving you money too.
Have you ever come across any interesting stories or strange requests in your experience?
I wouldn't say any strange requests regarding the wine and champagne, but typically if a couple are supplying it themselves, they'll often opt to go over to France and visit a few vineyards and try the wines and champagnes. I think that's a nice way of personalising your day, the fact that you've been to the vineyard that's supplying your wine or champagne. And also a lot of champagne houses now personalise the bottles. That's a nice touch, whether it's for the champagne that's served on the day, or some of my clients will choose to actually buy the little mini bottles and give them as gifts to the guests.
Depends on you, what you choose. I mean, I chose French wines, particularly for my wedding lunch, which was the main focus of the wine side of things, because I'm a francophile and I've lived in France, and I love French wines, and therefore I thought, if I'm getting married, and I hope I only do it once, I thought I'd show some really classy French wines. So a white Burgundy and a Bordeaux, and a good champagne, and then the sweet South African wine at the end.
So we had a champagne, 2 whites and 2 reds. But I think what was important was not to go for something really esoteric, but just to go for something that actually everybody's really going to love, rather than feeding my personal passion for trying new things and experimenting.
On the wedding day, yeah. Maybe not the right day.
Yeah, actually just almost wanted to go for classics, and it may sound boring, but actually at the end of the day it's about people enjoying themselves, so you want what they want. So I had a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, naturally, and then for the, dare I say it, slightly older generation, we had a Chablis, which is classic, but another really good value for money one that I really love. So we went with the classic Beaujolais for the red, so really chilled. And then there was another beautiful Victorian Pinot Noir, not as in the era, as in the region, Australia. And so yeah, so I had a Pinot Noir and then a Beaujolais, and that just seemed, I hope, to keep everybody happy. This is a few years ago now, and I think things have moved on a lot, but even though we like to think that people have strayed from the traditional things, actually when it comes to a classic wedding, a classic event like a wedding, people still often revert to classics and favourites, even in a New World sense, like a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is a classic from the New World.
The ideal wedding wine is one that hasn't cost you very much money, that you bought a long time ago and that you're dying to drink, I would say. So yeah, it's something that gives you pleasure.
Well, obviously you want something that's going to be food friendly, because you'll be drinking it at dinner. Maybe something that's not too alcoholic, and something that is maybe a bit of a crowd pleaser. So for a white wine, maybe something like a Macon, a relatively inexpensive white Burgundy, or even a New World Riesling or something, depending on what type of food you're having.
It's very difficult to, I think, have something like a celebration of a wedding, or whether it's a christening or anything, without having some kind of sparkling wine. So it doesn't necessarily have to be champagne. I mean, I would probably go with a champagne if that was me, but I think it's sparkling wine is all about celebration, isn't it? So, and when you go to an event and to celebrate something, I think the very first wine that pops into everybody's minds is something fizzy. So I think if you didn't have that, people would almost be disappointed, because it's kind of expected.
I wouldn't choose something that's too kind of esoteric or challenging or wacky. It may be a very complex and exciting wine, but you want to make your guests feel comfortable, and you don't want the wine really to be the focal point of the day. And lots of your guests, they may not be wine buffs, wine experts, and I think just to get a wine that many people will enjoy is probably the best advice.
I wouldn't serve brands actually. I'd kind of avoid big branded wines and go for something that's a little bit more unusual, but a little bit more niche. But I think you have to bear in mind that there are lots of people there. Obviously, we hope you have lots of people there, not just a couple, and that they're going to have a wide variety of tastes, really. So try and choose something that's not too weird and wonderful and outlandish. I mean, I'm not sure I'd go with a, I don't know, an Asiatico from Greece or something, but a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, or a Côte du Rhône, or a Chilean Pinot Noir. I mean, all those things are good value wines that don't cost a fortune. They're under 10 quid. Yeah, they're food friendly, and most people are going to like them. Well, I'd go somewhere where you can take your own wine, particularly if you're doing a dinner. I mean, some of the corkage charges that people charge for taking your own wine are ludicrous. So, particularly at the moment, I think that caterers need the business. So if you're going somewhere, an event, and the caterer's doing the food, make sure that you negotiate either a very low corkage charge or no corkage charge.
I think don't feel that you have to have champagne. And I think some people think, oh, it's a wedding, we've got to have champagne, but because of their budget, they can't really afford to have a really fantastic champagne anyway. And if you're happy to have, say, a Prosecco, there's some amazing Prosecco now, and you could have far more exciting Prosecco for less than you would champagne.
If you're going to take wine planning into your own hands, here are some tips to consider. Consider the time of year and let that influence the menu and the drinks list. Think that a deliciously crisp, refreshing rosé will go down a treat at a wedding on a hot summer day. Location can help guide your wine list, so consider where you're both from, where you live, where you met, or where you're getting married, because all of those places can have a meaningful link to your wine list. It's a good idea to consult with your caterers to make sure the food and wine go very well together. However, if it's a buffet style or lots of different dishes, opt for a more versatile or notoriously food-friendly wines like unoaked Chardonnay or very fruity, medium-bodied Pinot Noir. Hope you picked up some great wine tips for your upcoming wedding, or make sure to share this with any friends or family getting married soon. Thank you so much for watching.